I'll be reading an excerpt from the first book in the series of the Journey of Atlantis. Derek hated this point in time when an attack was about to be launched. You were never 100% certain that Alice hadn't figured out what you were about to do, and security forces would be waiting for you. Many people had nothing but accolades about Alice, but Derek saw Alice for what she really was, a way to control the doomed population until the select few could run off like cowards, leaving their brethren to endure the final apocalypse. Oh no, that was Derek's way of thinking. We all came in together and we're all going out together. Personally, Derek believed God was closing the chapter on man, and this gesture of escape was a blasphemous attempt to override God's decree. There were people that looked on the project like the Jews in the Bible fleeing into the desert in search of their new home. Opposite to the belief Derek held, they believed that the project was a holy mission. He could see how people were fooled and deluded by that notion, probably by propaganda spread by the consortium. It was for this reason that he did not accept the Ark idea. He knew too many true Christians that were not going because they had been deemed impure. The very thought made him furious. Since when did man decide who is pure and who is not? If mankind had been meant to survive this catastrophe, God would have given us time to make a spaceship big enough to take all the worthy. He reasoned, but no. He had just given us enough time to get our affairs in order, and that's all. They were about to attack a part of the spaceport track that had the weakest protection, according to the intel. He had been with this group for a couple of years now. Before, they had attacked convoys and supply lines. This attack upon one of the hardened targets was something he had taken part in just once before. He was waiting at his post about 50 yards outside of the monitored zone. Once they crossed that invisible line, hell would break loose and everything would start to come unglued. The biggest thing to remember, he knew, especially at this level of attack, was not to panic, keep cool, stick to the plan, but be ready to improvise should the plan go south. Player 4, the translated voice said softly into his earpiece. Orders over the Tor network was short and coded for speed and were less likely to be figured out. Acknowledged, Derek responded. He had been hearing others getting their orders now for a couple of minutes. Option 11A, the voice said. The time was now. Option 11A, Derek repeated to ensure that he heard correctly. This meant that he was going to take the second of 4 options for the group to approach the track. This order might mean that something was up or had just been changed at the last minute in case their intentions had been guessed. 4324, 3.14, height, the voice said to everyone at once. It was the code to strike, coming directly from the commander of the mission. Derek moved silently toward the zone, executing the second option as they had practiced in the VR chambers and in the live terrain exercises. Halt. You are trespassing on project grounds. Lay down your weapons and stand still with your hands over your head and await security that is moving in your direction now. By crossing into the security monitored zone, Derek had triggered the automated message. The whole area was probably being bathed in various detection wavelengths with all kinds of video and audio recording hidden in the light forest cover. The booming message repeated 2 more times, then, any non-compliance will be met with deadly force. That was the final warning. Here we go, thought Derek. Player 4, 6221, break, the voice in his earpiece commanded. 6221, break, Derek acknowledged. He was to move for the pylon that was one of the targets for demolition. Suddenly, 2 other people were on either side of him. They all wore coded RFID chips that immediately identified them so they would know friend from foe quickly, and his HUD display showed them to be friendly players 2 and 8. The 3 moved silently toward their target. When they were within 200 yards of the target, a laser fence appeared. Players 2 and 8 quickly rummaged through their backpacks for the elongated mirror stands that they used to make a hole in the fence. The downside to using the mirrors is that the guys with the particle rifles could see them pretty clearly now. The security would have no doubt as to their intentions and would be mobilizing to their positions immediately. After they cleared the laser fence, they started to hear particle fire. The particle rifles were a real threat. They were essentially handheld railguns that accelerated a projectile, in this case a particle a little larger than a grain of sand, at nearly the speed of light. When one of those hit a person, the kinetic energy that it had was imparted to the body and, well, it wasn't pretty. He had seen someone get their arm blown off that way once, but usually they just got dead. His group didn't have particle rifles, and they couldn't use a missile since the auto defense laser guns would track it and detonate it before reaching the target. They relied on stealth and speed to accomplish their missions. Luckily, however, there were snipers stationed to help them. They just needed to push to the target. They had to reach the pylon and place the charges that Derek had brought with him and get away as quickly as possible before the charges detonated. Derek slipped on the small mirrored shield, which expanded to cover a large part of his profile. No sooner that he had unfurled his shield than he took a laser cannon hit to his head. A very small percentage of the heat from the cannon got to him, but it was still considerable. Derek took 2 more hits from the laser cannon and a near miss from a particle rifle. Player number 2 was not so lucky. His mirror took a hit with the particle gun, it sheared his hands off, and he was burned down by the laser cannon before he could scream. Just drive to the target, Derek told himself. On his way to the pylon, he kept zigzagging. 2 more particle shots missed him. He made it to the pylon before he could get the charges out of his bag. A figure in standard security body armor and headgear stepped out from behind the massive pylon. "Step away from the bag or die," a female voice said, and it was clear that the order was not going to be repeated. From nowhere, player 8 leapt for the woman. She raised her particle weapon and split Derek's comrade in 2. Derek stood up with his hands in the air and started to move away from the bag. As he did so, he kicked the arming switch on one of the charges. The security woman charged, hitting Derek with the butt of her rifle, knocking him unconscious. The woman grabbed a satchel and ran, flinging it safely away from the pylon. Moments later, an enormous explosion flared in the darkness. As the woman walked up to the unconscious form, a male voice spoke over her earpiece. "Looks like the attack has been put down. Alice says 22 dead, 6 captured, including your buddy, and 2 got away." "That sounds about right," she acknowledged. "The enemy usually attacks in units of about 25 or 30. I really hate to see the ones that end up like this one." She looked down at the unconscious captive. "He can't be but 14 or 15. I wish they'd quit using kids. I hate killing kids."